Yeah,
Hi.
how's it going? Can you hear me?
Good. How are you? Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Hold on just a second.
I'm trying to get squared away where you get the maximum light.
Oh, you look amazing.
Okay, does it look kind of dark on my screen? How can I?
You got a little bit of a shadow. Hi, Moot.
Hey, baby girl, how are you?
I got
I'm
a
okay.
shadow coming
Sorry.
from
Sorry, I'm late.
which way?
You have it on your right side. Yeah, if you scoot over to your left. To your left.
Go this way?
Your left, yeah, your left, my right.
Let me see what we can do here. I want to get the tree.
Now I am.
Okay, cool. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. We're going to allow people to get online with us, okay? We'll start right at the 3-3 time. And at that time, we will be doing a short breathing exercise. So make sure you're adjusted and can breathe with us, okay? Just give us a few more minutes to get everyone on board. Thank you. Welcome. I'm going to say that all for the next few minutes. This is day 3 of Ignite Your Soul Connection. We have had a phenomenal first 2 days, now day 3. But before we begin this conversation, let's go ahead and just synchronize our breath together so that we can feel very comfortable in the space of one, okay? So in this breathing exercise, what I'd like you to do is to inhale and exhale through your nose and make sure that you're breathing into your belly. So right at your navel, place your attention, and as you breathe in, allow your stomach to expand, and as you exhale, allow it to collapse, okay? And if you have any trouble with this, still practice it with us. And if you need assistance after we complete this particular webinar, we have videos that we can send you and help you out, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, exhale all of the air from your lungs. Again, through your nose, exhale. Now breathe in to your belly and hold your breath and exhale through your nose. Push it in gently and hold it. 2, 3, 4, very good. Breathe in all the way at your navel and hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose. Squeezing in and hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in through your nose. Feel yourself relax and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, pushing in and hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in through your nose and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale and release. And now just continue to breathe naturally. I want you to just scan your body right now and just see if you have any point of tension, And if you do, take a few minutes and just breathe in that area. Use your imagination to allow yourself to release any tension that you may feel. And throughout this presentation, if at any time you feel anxious or you feel tense, go into your breath. Okay, go into your breath and allow yourself to relax. We are having an expansive conversation, and sometimes expansive conversations can be triggering. Okay, and the best thing to do is to use your breath. All right, so Healing Waters for Men. This is a 5-day conference that we started on Monday. And on Monday night, we spoke with Timothy Glenn all about Beyond the Parent Trap. And we will be posting each of these videos probably next week so you can see the full conference. But when you actually go through the work that we were able to release on Monday, you will find some resolve for yourself, or you will begin to actually look for places that you can expand. So we invite you to actually look at all of them. So Monday was Beyond the Parent Trap. On Tuesday, we did Empowered Emotions with Martin Grant and Marshawn Frencha. We did the elder and the youth. It was an amazing conversation. And then tonight, we have the wonderful opportunity to speak with a lifetime friend. Greg and I, or Ausar and I, have known each other for well over 30 years. And I'm excited for us to have an amazing conversation all about grounding ourselves spiritually. So I'm going to bring Greg on so he can share about who he is, and you'll find out why I love him so much. Greg, Ausar.
Ausar, good evening to the national audience. It's a pleasure to be here at this particular time right here, right now. I guess I'll start with who I'm expressing as in the most powerful way right now. I'm a grandfather. So I'm celebrating 10 I have what I call the grand squads. And so that's been an interesting journey, how I have assumed the role as the patriarch and the matriarch inside of my family system with my children and grandchildren. And I'll explain that a little more later on when we get into it. But I guess I will just give some qualifiers if I must. I started this journey over 40 years ago, getting a bachelor's degree in the area of adult education, SIU Carbondale, during which time I was in the military. So I had the opportunity to scan the globe while I was doing that. After I completed my bachelor's degree, I was toying with an advanced degree. So I thought about theology, but Spirit led me to go into psychology. So I ended up getting my master's in counseling psychology from Roosevelt University in Chicago, graduated in '87. And that's really where my journey began. Because after getting my master's degree, I started my own private practice in Hyde Park. And many of my clients that was being sent to me, actually, I would say this, 100% of my clients were African Americans sent by the different insurance companies. 98% of those were females. And so my clientele was paying clientele, insurance-based. And what I had found was what I had learned in the schools that I had went through wasn't working with the African Americans that I was dealing with. So I began to study Black psychology. And I lucked up on Black psychology when I was studying. I began to look at something going on in Egypt. And so this is like this is 88. And so I started delving into comedic thought, introduced to that by way of psychology inside of Black psychology. So many people don't know there's a difference. There's the typical association of psychologists. And then in 1968, 52 years ago, there was the evolving of the Black Psychologists, Association of Black Psychologists, ABPSI. And so they created an organization, they pulled away, and they began to practice psychology and realized they were Black psychologists without a Black psychology. So the last 50 years, they really have been unfolding into a psychology that celebrates the African in all the variations that we come in. And I say that because that's going to help us understand the conversation as we move forward into spirituality. So after having gotten into that, and then I was in ministry, many people know that I pastored a traditional Christian church. It was a non-denominational church. I've had experience from the Baptist experience. I've had the holiness experience. Then I had the non-denominational. And the last 10 years, I've been inside of what is known as a new thought.
Mm.
And so I've created something very unique called Now Thought. And it operates inside of Black spirituality. And somebody would say, well, is there such thing as Black spirituality? We'll get deeper into that as we go on. So that's my credentials. And so I've operated as a life coach. I think I was one of the inaugural classes over 10 years ago that went through Master Force. And inside of Master Force, I moved from doing therapy because I found that most people don't need therapy, or if they get coached first and begin to take on whatever their soul path is, they won't actually have a need for therapy in its traditional sense. So I celebrate psychology. I celebrate the discipline of coaching. So I coach in a variety of areas. I do relationship coaching. Married for 30 years. 10 years ago, my wife transitioned. 30 years, we got 4 adult kids from that. She had the opportunity to see all 4 children have 1 children. And since that time, they've multiplied. 4 turned into 10. And so I'm really celebrating this space I'm in right now as a grandfather. It's bringing me to a whole nother aspect of being. So I hope that kind of, we'll unpack other things as they come about.
Yeah, that is really, really great. And I too am a grandmother. I don't have 10, I have 5.
Okay, halfway there.
Halfway there. And it's exciting. I agree with you. Being a grand mother, and my grandchildren call me Mima.
Okay.
So being a Mima has been probably the most delightful joy I have yet to experience. Yeah.
Mm,
So I
there's
too,
nothing like it.
nothing like it. And it keeps me present to the work, and why I'm here and what that contribution looks like, because I can
Hmm.
see that they too need what we're bringing, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Very cool. And I just want to acknowledge you, Greg, for being someone who has consistently been in my life. And I believe we met. There's no accidents, there's
Not at
no
all.
incidents, but
Right.
I believe that we met on a phone call.
Yes.
You were calling Etango.
Yes.
And at the time, you were looking for someone who could talk more about comedic sciences.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I
Mhm.
got that person on the phone.
Yeah. That was me.
Yes, yes, it was you. And actually I came there and I was looking for the meta netter,
Yep.
and you guys had it. So I came to the store
Yep.
and we had a great conversation, and it has unfolded from there.
Yeah. From
Yeah.
there for over 30
Yeah,
years.
30 years. Had the distinct pleasure of performing not performing, but conducting as the celebrant, my first African-centered wedding
Yeah.
with you, and
Yeah.
and it was a wonderful experience. It really changed the life of my congregation, who got the opportunity to observe that, and it really changed my life in a significant way.
Yeah, you and your mate, you and Tony
Tony,
were
yeah,
just phenomenal in that. I remember how beautiful the pictures were, how just regal everyone looked. It was really a great day.
yes,
So
yes.
yeah, that was wonderful. So all right, so now let's share with people what we came to talk about tonight.
Okay.
And I want to actually there's several ways that I would go, but I want to give you the opportunity to direct the conversation. What is it that your heart or your spirit is asking you to share with us tonight?
Okay. So when I was took on the assignment, what I don't do is I don't spend a lot of time beforehand. I
Mm-hmm.
usually take about within the 24-hour window, I begin to ask spirit,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I am to share? And even in the conversation with you on yesterday, it was affirming that you were saying, let's go with the flow. But we're
Mm-hmm.
inside of ground, being spiritually grounded.
Yes.
So I would like to start with that, what it means to be grounded. And I'm being grounded right now. I'm in nature.
Mm.
I'm out here in nature, which represents nature. And that's the word nature is a Kemetic word where we get the word nature from. And the Nile Valley Africans believe that nature or nature was the greatest manifestation of the creator. They didn't use the term God, and it was the manifestation of spirit and spiritness. And so I want to start with understanding you cannot be grounded until you fully accept who you are.
Mm.
So we have a lot of people that don't want to accept who they are because they have an issue with, I'm speaking particularly to an African audience tonight. Those who are not African Americans who are in on this conversation will be blessed to give you a better understanding of who we are. There's a lot of things we don't share with others, even when they walk close up on us. They don't see that aspect of us. So as I talk tonight or speak tonight, I'll begin to unpack some things that you may find you've never heard those things. Well, you've come to the right place because each day you should live in a way, first, that you recognize that you have a limited experience. This new day, this now day, is an opportunity for you to get a new experience that should expand you. And so when you're not expanding, that tells you that you're not accepting the newness of what life offers you. The universe is abundant. It
Mm.
always is offering you more. It's always offering you the things that are necessary to get you to your expected end. So as I frame our conversation tonight, I want to really let people know that I am unashamedly African American or Black and unapologetically a Christian. Now, let me help you with that. Though I say I am a Christian, I have deconstructed, just like the Black psychologists in 1968 took the opportunity, the liberty that they had to create a Black psychology. I've taken the liberty to create a Black Christology. And so as we go through this conversation, you'll see where I come. And it's not moving images. It's not changing the white, blonde-eyed, blue-eyed and blonde hair image into a Black one. No, it's not that at all. It's not about moving the image, but it's about getting to the message that the image was supposed to project. So we have to understand that we have a dislike for things which are African, and that's called Afrophobia. And we can't, until we are ready to accept the fullness of who we are, the skin that we are in, our phenotypes, how we're showing up. You can't say you are spiritual and not acknowledge the physical. The spiritual is that which you can't see, and the physical is the outsourcing of the creator expressing through you as you. And if you don't acknowledge your physicalness, then you're not grounded. You won't even be able to receive the spirituality that which we call spirituality is not what we should be seeking after. It's spiritness. And we're going to unpack that. So we got three things to deal with going into this conversation. Afrophobia, that is the dislike for things which are African. Europhobia, that is a positive, unwarranted love for things that are European or westernized. Now you got to ask yourself where you fall in this category. And the third one is what I have put down as Grecomania. That is, we over-identify with the violent derangement of Greek thought upon our psyches.
Mm.
And so I framed this conversation tonight about being grounded inside of the concept. To ground gives you the ability to run the complete circle or the complete circuit. In electricity, if something isn't grounded, then that that circuit can actually do more damage than good. And if you're not grounded, then that what you call spirituality is doing more damage than good to you. So one of the reasons I'm out here in nature is so that I can find myself grounded, getting into the resonance of the frequency, the vibration of the earth. The earth is our friend. We know it. I have to talk from my spiritual system as Christianity. It says ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So the earth represents us. So we come and we put our feet in the grass, in the dirt, we sit and we listen and we receive. So I'll start right there.
That is powerful. That is, you said so much already. I just want to hear this European Greco-ness and Afro-Secerness, and that's very cool. All right, so go ahead.
So when we talk about spirituality, for most people, they say, I'm spiritual. So when a person says to me, I'm spiritual, my next question is, what does that look like? What does it really look like? And basically all they're probably saying is they're not identifying with any particular religious path. And so we have to understand there's a practice, which is religion, and there's a philosophy, which is more spiritedness. So let me talk about those two words. The African or Black psychologists have a term called spiritness. And that's the condition of being spirit, and it's distinct from spirituality. And spirituality is having a quality of being spirited or spiritual. So you can have the qualities of something and not be that. Whereas when you are spirit, you are that. You be it. You're not becoming. That's why we say we are divine spiritual beings having a human expression. And the spiritness of who we are gives us the opportunity to master this thing called life. So I believe we all are born with the soul path. And your spirit self helps you, works with you to overcome, to master the soul path that you have come here to live and to experience. So spiritness is more physics, like energy, metaphysical. Spiritual or spirituality is more religious. And so I'm more into the physics of it. That's why you hear me talking about positive thinking. You hear me talking about the power of the mind, because spiritual deal with the brain. Spiritness deals with the mind. And those are two different dichotomy, or they show up in two different ways. So let's unpack those things and let's see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, so I like to hear, and I think that I know, because brain tends to be more of a mechanical way of being, whereas the mind tends to be more of a flow.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so how would you unpack that inside of religion and spirituality?
Okay, so man is a spirit that possesses a soul and lives in a body. So
Mhm.
the spirit side is the mind side. The soul side is the brain side. Now, the brain is the sensory aspect of who we are. The brain registers what we experience from the outside in. The brain is that aspect of us that drives most of us, that runs the program or sets a program in place that we live by. That is, our experiences are in the realm of knowledge, which is in the realm of the sensory realm. So the reason why I remain as a Christian Muslim suit primarily, or use that terminology, is because the audience is so vast. For African Americans, the vast majority of us identify with Christianity.
Yes.
So with that being the case, I have ears of a lot of people. So I talk their language. So one of the things that the scripture clearly tells us is that to be carnally minded, and what that means is to be led. A carnal mind is a mind that is ruled by the sensory realm. So we know mind is spirit, and when you are ruled by the sensory realm, that is the experiences you have had, and when you lean into your experiences, you are limited. And when you are limited to your experiences, you have a difficult time seeing new situations with new eyes and new ears. So it says a carnal mind, it says that to be carnally minded is to be death, is to have death. And what that means, not that you die a physical death, but you don't have the full expression of who you are. You're not able to run the program. If you're running 5G, the census, that's 5G, you only can run like in the natural. If I'm running 5G to my house, I can't download your program.
Yeah.
I can't download something you sent me from Masterforce to upload. I can't do it because I'm running 5G.
Yeah.
But when you're running Wi-Fi, that's the mind. You can download things faster and have access to more than you do with 5G. So we're like that. We can either run 5G, and most people don't even run 5G, they run 3G. They only operating off of 3 of the senses.
Yeah.
Whereas when you are spirited, you run the mind program. Now, that's where the game of life is won. When you can operate in mind, because when you operate in mind, you have what we call Christ consciousness. So we're talking about being grounded. So to be grounded spiritually is to move away from the physical, the things that we do that has been passed down to us that we have not validated as truth, but we are just operating in belief. To be grounded spiritually is to operate in truth. Okay. And truth sometimes means I have to let go of what I have been given that have served me at one time, but no longer serve me. That's the challenge that Africans, particularly African Americans, are having today. For those who don't know, there's a great falling away in what is known as the church. Although you look around the corner and you see a mega church, but the mega church is not the true essence of what's going on religiously in society today. The average church in America today is probably about 50 people, if that. But the mega churches, which is a dying dinosaur, and I believe this situation that just has happened is the death knell. It's a death knell because people have come to the realization, I don't need all of that physical stuff. The most difficult thing people have had during this time is grounding themselves in themselves. Not in the Hammond B3 organ, not in running up and down the aisles, not in all the pomp and circumstance that go on inside of the church, but to understand that they are the church. Now, to be spiritually grounded, to me, means to be connected to source. The ability to run the program. And finally, to come to the realization that you are the program. When you look at Christ, so I'll use that example because a large part of our audience are probably Christians. The thing that got Christ in trouble when he said this, I and the Father are one. If you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father. People are not ready for that. We're not even ready for that. We have a difficult time grounding inside of the possibility of I am God. We have a hard time with that because we suffer from what the Black psychologists would call alien self-disorder. We don't like ourselves, so God cannot be represented as us. That's why we have such an easier time acclimating to God as that white beard, unmelanated man in the sky, versus the reality of God is black matter, that which can't even be seen, but can only be experienced. Question?
Well, you and so what I really got present to just now is the pure disconnection that does exist for many of us because church stood, the building itself did or does stand as a representation of our spirituality. Because I could say, I'm a Christian, I go to church, I tithe, my pastor said, all of that is representation of me as Christian. But what you just said is that's going away, and this could be the end of that. And people now have to figure out what does it mean to have church or connect to source energy right here in myself and become comfortable knowing that that energy is surging in me all the time. And if I really wanted to know who I am, all I have to do is tap in.
That's right. First, you got to be willing to tap out, to
Yeah.
unconnect, disconnect.
Yeah.
And so the universe has done a very funny thing. It's disconnected us. It's got us all to the place where we have social distanced. And the only problem we've been having now is dealing with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think people have finally gotten to the place where they have to do the mirror work because they're miserable and they're not going to work. They're miserable and they're not engaging that person who they used to say caused them misery.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
it's themselves.
it's themselves
Right.
or it's their own family. And when they
Yeah.
realize your family is only an expression of you. When I look into the 10 little faces, I see 10 aspects of who I am.
Yes.
And when I look
Well,
at
and those, and Greg, that's a great example too of who God for us is, because we are also that representation of God for each other.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's unpack that term. The
Mm-hmm.
term God is detrimental to us
Yes, I got.
because when we use the term God, it automatically conjures up
Mm-hmm.
something external to us,
Mm-hmm.
conjures up a punitive person that is looking to zap us or evaluating us on imperfection. And
Yes.
so if we are imperfect, then how could we possibly ground ourselves in perfection?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a lot of deprogramming that we must go through. Now, here's the thing. With the advent of the social media, the internet, now pastors have found themselves in a strange predicament because people have access to so much information that was one time only controlled from the pulpit. So with that information being available, and here's one thing about information: the moment you get new information, you will never be the same, even if you don't accept it. Because
Mm.
now you have a contrast. It's like a rubber band. If you stretch a brand new rubber band, it never returns to its original form. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like example, on my page, I purposely project things onto my Facebook page that changes the lives of people. They get angry at me
Mm-hmm.
because now they've seen it, now they've heard it, and they can't get it out their mind.
You know, I shared that. I was talking to my son this morning. I said, I was sharing that same thing. I said, even if you share something that people disagree with, they're actually hearing it on two levels. One is the conscious level where they're engaging with you, but there's also the seed that's being planted in the soul. And
Yes.
once the seed is planted in the soul now begins to manifest within the spirit of that person, and they get to, open up. It's,
Good. Good. So you introduced the word the consciousness. So
yeah.
when we talk about man having a brain, or a brain which is the five sensory self, but we also understand that man has a conscious, a subconscious, and the conscious is that which we are aware of what's going on around us.
Mm-hmm.
The conscious feeds the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
The subconscious is like a waiter at a fine restaurant. It does whatever you tell it to do. It prepares your meal exactly. Some people have never been to a good restaurant, but if you say you want it rare, that waiter is going to make sure it is rare at a fine dining establishment. Your mind, your subconscious is the same way. Now, here's what we don't understand. From the time of conception in your mother's womb, you become your subconscious is available, and it's picking up from the time of in vitro until 7 years of age approximately. All you're doing is downloading the program.
Mm-hmm.
So if your mother is having a terrible time during her pregnancy with you, that's being downloaded into your program. And so at the age of 7, you're programmed. That's
Yeah.
why the Catholic Church says, give me your child
For
till the
7 years.
age of 7.
That's
It
right.
will be a Catholic for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I know a gentleman right now that's 85 years old, used to be part of the movement. He is having a struggle with Catholicism, which he left. He wants to return to the religion of his youth because that it's been programmed.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about being grounded means putting yourself into a position where now you can download a new program. Okay, so it takes about 28 days to really download a program and begin to be consciously aware of when that program kicks in. In our average day, we have over 70,000 thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things I tell people I'm coaching is to take a week and monitor your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Group your thoughts into groups and see what you're thinking about. And that will tell you a lot about what you're about, because the thoughts you have are continually seeding your subconscious, and your subconscious is a fertile place and it produces after its kind.
You know, that's really great work. I actually do remember when I unconsciously did that, right? I literally knew that something was off, and I started looking at my thoughts and journaling. I use journaling as one of my
Mm-hmm,
ways
mm-hmm.
to check in, and I had so much. First of all, there was pain, then there was loneliness, then there was mistrust, then there was fear. I mean, I couldn't believe that, and I was a very successful person outwardly,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was very successful outwardly, but my thoughts were tragic to me.
Right.
And I really had to look and deal with that. And so that's a very great exercise that you're telling people to do,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we don't realize how our thoughts are running
Right.
us.
They put you on a frequency. It's like if you're driving down the road, I know they don't do it nowadays because cars are different. But when I was a kid, when you would take a road trip and you would turn the dial and you would pick up the station. So we're leaving Chicago. By the time we got down to Southern Illinois, the station was like, and
Yeah,
so my father would try to fine tune it, finding the frequency. And
right.
so we are the same way. We are emitting a frequency.
Yes.
And that frequency is a result of our thoughts. Our
Yeah.
thoughts produce emotions,
Yeah.
and our emotions produce a frequency and a feeling. And you pick up after that frequency. You may say, why did I draw that into my life? Because you are emitting that.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we have to understand that we are not physical beings, we are spirit beings.
Mm-hmm.
We only have this earth suit in order to experience the earth realm. Had a great conversation on 2 days ago. I was out at the grave site with someone. They wanted me to meet them at the gravesite of one of their loved ones, and that's what they wanted. So I went there, and there was a little guy there. He was about 9 years old, and for some reason he started asking me all these questions about spirit. And so one of the things I told him, his question had to do with when you die, where do you go? And I said, first of all, when you take your shirt off, is that shirt you? He said, no. I said, so your body is the same thing. It's not you. It's only a container. The greater part of who we are is spirit. And when spirit is energy, and does energy dissipate? Does energy die? It changes forms. And so when we come to the realization of that as Black folk, we'll greater appreciate ancestral reverence.
Yes.
Okay. So when you can't say you are a spirited being, a spiritual being, and not understand that you are surrounded by, now this is scripture. It says we are surrounded by a host of witnesses. And who are those witnesses that the Europeans were talking about? The ancestral beings that we actually have access to. Now he said, wait a minute, I have access to ghosts. I said, ghosts are only in movies. Ghosts are stories. They're called spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this to the young man. Now I'm having a spiritual conversation, and he was tracking it. He was on it. I said to him that spirits respect you. If you are afraid, your loved ones will not manifest or contact you.
Yeah.
And he says, have you ever, I said, matter of fact, just 3 days prior to me having this conversation, I had contact with Tony.
Yeah.
So here's what people don't understand, that we are more invisible than we are visible. We celebrate the material, which is the visible, more than we do the invisible, which is spirit. So being grounded means getting back to spirit. Being grounded means, okay, we are mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So we do a lot with mental. We're very heady, okay? So let's drop that one off. Emotional, we'll keep that one up. Physical, let's drop that one. And what's left? You have your emotional self and your spiritual self. If you learn how to operate inside of your emotional self and your spiritual self, you can have whatever you desire. Because if you, can I give you an example? A lot of people use affirmations.
Yeah.
But if your affirmation has no emotion tied to it, then it won't bring it to you. Emotions are the rail on which things manifest on. So if you have emotions that are sad, then sad things manifesting, more things will manifest in your life to keep that emotion going. So it's important that we learn how to work with energy, because we're energy beings. We have to understand that. So when I talk about spirituality, I'm moving the conversation away from heaven out there. So the scripture says heaven is within. Okay, and it's inside our minds, and our minds operate with imagination. And I want to say that the imagination is the most powerful thing.
Yes.
Because what is happening in our lives are the things that we are imagining.
Yes.
Imaging. That's why, right. I imagine. I'm, the root of that is I am. Okay. And then what's even more powerful is the singularity of I, the power of I. That's groundedness. When you and source, you and it are one, not a duality, not I'm becoming something, because becoming says there's separateness. But when you say I am, you are. It is what it is. If you say I am broke, you are one with brokenness. If you say I am healed, you are one with healing. So my experience has, at first I had to have the audacity, Mushim Suit, to go against the grain.
Yes.
And I was the man for the job because I didn't grow up in a religious home. But I was the only one that took time out to go to church by myself. And at 12, I had a conversation with Source. I said, if you are real, now I'm 12 years old having this conversation with it, and I call God it. Because the moment you call it God, first you make it a man, or you anthropomorphize it, and that brings it down to your level. I call it because it's neither male or female, because it runs both energy. It can be whatever it is. I said, if you are real in my lifetime, show me. I have had a lifetime of manifestations of it showing me that it is real. That's why I can't limit my belief system to what Christianity taught me. because I've had conversations with Buddhists and understand the Buddhist conversation, not the religious aspect, but the spirituality behind it. So we have to learn this. We have to learn to separate the mess from the message from the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Religion is heavy on messengers. Spirituality, to use a term more familiar with, is heavy on the message. That's why I like metaphysical interpretations, because it gives you a deeper, okay, there's an outward expression, but there's a deeper expression.
Mm-hmm.
We have to learn those things.
You know, that's really profound, Greg. I'm I'm loving this conversation. It's very deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, deep calls into the deep.
but it's also very refreshing. And what I want to do, because I found this time of people, you know, having to be you know, isolated,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
I found this to be a very enriching time for my life. My
Right.
creativity has been off the chain. I probably have more contact with clients than I ever have. The coaches are constantly wanting something to do. What are we doing? What are we doing? You know, so how do we, or what is there for us to support people who are feeling challenged inside of this energy
Mm-hmm.
because of the conditioning, the way that we've been conditioning, either through Christianity
Yes.
or through psychology or through society. We've been conditioned to
Mm-hmm.
believe that something is seriously wrong.
Yeah, it is. And you know what it is?
What is it?
Okay, when I was a kid, I like this. When I was a kid in about second grade, not second, it had to be kindergarten, we used to sing a song and it went, roll, roll, roll your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is such a dream. So let's go with me again. Roll, roll, roll your boat gently up the stream.
Oh, up.
Okay, but see, here's the problem. That's the problem. We are going against the current of life. We are rowing upstream. So the first thing you have to do is take your oars out the water and let the stream turn you in the right direction. So that means you have to trust that you don't have to get yourself to where you need to be. Life will get you there.
Wow.
See, we are so into trying to control from the brain versus living in the flow of the spirit. And when you live in the spirit, all things show up when they're supposed to. In the African way, you're never late. You show up always on time.
Oh, yes.
But we have been so conditioned to live by a clock, a day planner. So right now, what I'm doing with my people is teaching them how to live life effortlessly.
Yeah.
And you do that by going with the flow. So I like the canoe example, because once you take your oars out the water, now you're saying, I have to trust that I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to. Like when you ask for something, all you are to do is decree it. It's not for you to know when it shows up or how it shows up. Can I give you an example?
Please.
1992, I was called into the pastorate. And here's the conversation I had with it. If I'm called into the pastorate, I will never teach or preach in a storefront church. Now I'm bougie. Because I'm feeling like this. If I'm representing you, then let me be a manifestation of you. So when I said that, I stood on it. So the first thing we did was we rented hotels. Now, 30 years ago, I was renting hotels. I wasn't going into a storefront. Then one day I was on my way to work in a neighborhood I had just moved. I had been in the neighborhood about 4 years. But this day was the first day I saw this big, beautiful church, the church you got married in. Peace Church.
Beautiful.
Now check this out. Spirit told me, when you get off work, go back there and ask them if you could rent it. Lo and behold, I get back to the church at about 7 o'clock. They're having a church meeting already. And guess what the meeting was about? Now, mind you this, that it was an all-white church.
Right.
And they were having a meeting about, they had rented the church out to another black congregation that was violating everything that they had in the contract of rental. And here I show up on the night they having a vote, asking if I could rent the church. If I would have knew they were having that vote, I would have never showed up, because I would have said, why are they going to rent it out to another black congregation when they already having a problem with the black congregation? But I did what Spirit said. I showed up. Long story short, I ended up not only renting the church, we had that church there, but they ended up giving me the entire church 3 years later.
Yeah.
And I pastored an all-white church for a season. 2 churches. I had an all-white church and I had a black church. Exodus Ministries, we met in the afternoon, and in the morning, it was Peace Church of Bellwood.
Wow.
Brought them together, and they, you know why they told me they gave me the church?
Right.
They gave me the church because, first of all, I represented to them what 100 years prior to that, their forefathers represented. They were Germans, and they were opening a church for the German people. And I was opening a church that dealt with black people. They had enough integrity to say, you're doing exactly what you need to do. Teach your people. And so they gave it to me. Because I never said this, I never said I'm going to have a building fund. It was given to it. See, sometimes we get in the way.
Yes.
When we say we want a vacation, then we automatically say, I got to work overtime.
Yeah.
Why not just say I'm taking a vacation and begin creating the vacation?
Yeah.
And let source do what source does. That's why I am a sorcerer, because I operate with source. Come on now. Stop saying that you create things and don't identify. If you create something, you create it in source.
Yes.
So I'm a sorcerer in the truest sense.
I
don't get sick.
I know. You're
Right.
right on point.
Right. So 40 years, they're like, it's been 30 some odd years since I've gotten sick. I don't even get the common cold. And I ran a daycare. Anybody that run daycares know you're around little snotty-nosed children, and when they're around, you catch colds.
Right.
I would never catch anything, and I still don't, because I have programmed my subconscious self that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that my system moves towards life and not death. So when we talk about spirituality, we're talking about moving outside of the limitations that religion puts on you. The word religion means to tie to, religare. The Latin word means to tie to. It ties you to beliefs. It ties you to physical things, experiences.
Dogma.
So we are living in the best of times, even though these are the worst of times. The new spirituality is moving beyond the cultural mores or the dogma that is put out there. The 500 years ago, most people don't know, 500 years ago last year, 2019, 500 years ago, there was a guy by the name of Martin Luther. He led a revolt, a protest against the Catholic Church, which evolved into the Protestant religion, which is us. What is Protestant? You're Baptist, you're Anglican, you are foot washing Baptist. So all the denominations are the result of this man having the audacity to say, this ain't right. And so 500 years later, I'm standing up and saying, this ain't right. I'm saying that what you all are, this is psychotic, to continue to do something that is not getting you the outcome you desire, but you think if I keep doing it, I'm going to get it. Like, keep saying in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name will not change anything.
What about the blood of Jesus? Won't that change?
The blood of Jesus don't change anything either. See, all those things we were told. Now, here's the thing, the power about belief. If you believe something, there's a chance that it may happen. But I'm a spiritual scientist. I believe that I'm going to go the route that gives me the results. So you keep saying Jesus' name and let me do what I do and see who gets the outcome. You know, so 400 years, Jesus' name, we dealt with enslavement. 100 years after that, in Jesus' name, we were still in what is known as the Jim Crow. And so that in Jesus' name is doing more damage than good, because for me, it's magical thinking. Instead of taking the responsibility and saying, okay, so how many times have you prayed in Jesus' name? Have you gotten what you prayed for?
Oh, you're not talking to me because
No, I'm talking to the community. So I'm just saying, but because we've been programmed that Jesus is the only way, not realizing that it's not talking about the personage of the person that never existed, but it's talking about the message. He had the message that made a difference. That is the Christ consciousness, the God consciousness, the Christ, which is the comedic mummy that comes to life, dies to old self and rebirthed. And so my name, Ausar,
mm-hmm.
comes from, it represents the man who comes into full fruition, able to run both his male energy and his female energy. Just
Mm-hmm.
like you got Ausar and you have Aset.
Mm-hmm.
She runs both energies. She's complete.
Mm-hmm.
He's complete. Neither one of us are incomplete. But what the problem is, we only run one aspect, right? We are too male or we're too female.
Mm-hmm.
But to be a creator class being, you have to run both polarities. When we talk about electricity, you need the negative and you need the positive. And the negative isn't negative in kind of as in the connotation of being negative. It's a certain energy. You need both energies to create the polarities, but they all are one. I don't know where that came from or why it came.
No, and that's brilliant,
Right.
because inside of what I was asking about where people are right now, looking at how the world is,
Mm-hmm.
most people are judging
Mm-hmm.
that this is a negative situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've put the connotation negativity on it.
Right.
And because of that, we can't see the positive things that are flowing from it, right? Because we're staying focused on the negative. But if we really just look at it as an opportunity to see, like, I love talking about observing, just observe what's going on, there could be a different flow. There could
Yes.
be, and so everything could flow into the oneness of just being,
Mm-hmm.
the oneness of ascension, the
Right.
oneness of evolving, the oneness of getting to know oneself when we've been so busy that we couldn't do that before.
Mm-hmm. Everything is one. Even sickness is still the oneness with health. It's just the opposite contrast.
Yeah.
But we live in our lives inside of a duality of good and bad. There's no such thing as good and bad. There's experiences.
Yeah.
There are low vibration, high vibration experiences.
Yeah.
And so we have to learn to be accepting of whatever is manifesting and ask the question, what is the lesson?
Mm-hmm.
Because we grow through lessons.
Yes.
Okay, particularly the ones the failing moments or the failing experiences does not denote failure. It denotes that you still need to try again, that you haven't gotten the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one thing about religion, you can get it in a book. You can go through the 6 years required to get the master's in divinity, add 2 more, you get your doctorate. So in 8 years, you got your doctorate and you're confused because you don't have the experiences. It's like cooking a cake. I don't care if you put all the ingredients in there, it has to go in the oven for a certain measure of time. It has to stand the heat. And spirituality is about being okay with whatever shows up today and know that I can master it.
Mm.
I could be still and not be reactive, but be responsive, be respondent. And so what I'm encouraging the people who are coming to me, the people I'm talking to, we have to drop these cultural ties. Like, example, we can talk about Judeo-Christian all day long, but we have to talk about what the Islam has done to our psyche as Black people. We have to understand that anything that was imposed on us has impacted us in some way. So I have a big issue with a lot of people. wait a minute, no, I don't have an issue with them. Let me put it like this. I don't entertain those conversations. And if they come to me, I ask them this first question. Anytime anybody asks me a question, what difference will it make? And they say, what do you mean? What difference will my response make to you? Are you willing to change what you believe if I give you a truth that is contrary to your belief? And usually they say yes, but it usually ends up in a little conversation that could move to a debate that I just exit from early.
Mm.
I have no need to prove nothing to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's a difference between believing and knowing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when you get them into a serious conversation, they'll eventually say, well, all I know is I believe. Okay, but I'll tell you this. All I know is I know.
Mm-hmm.
What you know always trumps what you believe. Because when you say you believe something, you're kind of hesitant. But when you say, I know I need to turn right here, you're hitting that corner doing 30. But if you don't know, you hit the corner doing 10. So that's the power. Now, here's the thing about belief. Belief is dangerous because it can either help you or hurt you. If you believe in the right things, it's going to help you. But if you believe in the wrong things, it's going to hurt you. That's why it's important for us at some point in your spiritual maturity to take ownership of your beliefs. Look at everything you believe in and ask yourself, where did it come from? Have I practiced it? And when I practice it, does it give me the outcomes? If I'm not practicing it, then it's not a belief. I mean, it's not a real truth. Because if it was a real truth, you're getting the manifestations of that truth. But we usually practice beliefs at certain times in our lives, hoping that it's like a magical, like an abracadabra kind of thing. To say, I believe that I'm going to be delivered, and then you die. Yeah, you're delivered already.
Mm.
But we got to get to knowing. And you can know the Creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
As
that's
well as
really
you can know
powerful,
yourself.
Greg. That because I was sharing with someone. I said, I pray all the time because I believe that prayer is part of my conversation, my communion with God, with the universe, with source all the time. Every word is,
Mm-hmm.
is actually creating and manifesting itself. So even when I was potty training my children, I prayed.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was working with them, when I was doing anything, I didn't wait until something tragic happened.
Right.
That's why when it came that I learned about affirmations, I also knew that like prayer, when you pray, prayer works on you. It works on changing something in you and making you more receptive
Okay.
to a new idea or a new approach that can be planted. And most people, again, that's where the magical thinking comes from. Most people think when I pray, something outside is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're truly praying, what happens is the transformation within
Yeah.
you.
So let me talk about prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to contrast prayer against meditation. And
Yeah.
I want to use something that everybody's familiar with, who are Christians in particular. They're familiar with Jesus. He spent a lot of time in a position that has been called prayer, but it wasn't prayer. He was in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between prayer and meditation. And I believe we should spend more time in meditation
Yes.
than in prayer. It's like they say you measure twice and cut once.
Mm.
And so the meditation is the measuring twice. So here's what meditation is. Meditation is grounding yourself inside of source.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming back to congruence with the frequency, getting the download. So I start my day every day. And a group of people, we have a call, 6 a.m. to 6:15.
Mm-hmm.
We have a meditative thought. We start with breathing.
Yes.
Then we have a meditative thought, and then an affirmation, and then I have a moment of silence, and then I speak an affirming prayer. But what I'm telling everybody to do, meditation means getting still, realigning yourself throughout your day. You should do a brief breathing exercise, and the breathing exercise is bringing you in resonance with source. It's when you breathe, when you do a meditative breathing, it stops the monkey mind. Remember I said we have 70,000 thoughts?
Yes.
And people say it's impossible to stop a thought. No, it's not. Yes, no, it's not. It is possible to
And then
stop.
they're usually the same, they're repetitive.
They're repetitive.
They're usually negative.
And the way you do it, you focus on your breath, because it's impossible. And I learned this in Master Force 10 years ago. It's impossible to breathe, follow your breath, and think a thought.
Mm-hmm.
If you are thinking a thought while you're breathing, I'm like Bruce Lee. I'll smack you and say, breathe. You have to, you have to realize it's focusing on the breath. Now, why do we do that? Meditation brings you to a place of peace. Because while you're doing something, you can't create.
Mm.
We only create from the state of meditation. Now, here's what happens. While in meditation, once you really get quiet, then the fruit of meditation is going to manifest, which will be a thought or an idea or imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And we create from imagine the things, not one thing that has been created. The scripture tells us in John, all things that were created was created by the word. And the word is imagination. Imagination precedes the word.
Mm-hmm.
The word is the way of describing what I've seen. And so whatever you see, you can create if you know that. So meditation is getting quiet, being still, getting a download. Prayer, on the other hand, is conversations you have with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer is affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
thoughts that you have, statements that you make that are affirming, I can do it. That's a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That is an affirming, because the word says, ask and it's given. Asking means to decree. The Greek word in the New Testament that says ask is the word decree. So we have to learn that our words that when you decree a thing is different from when you ask a thing. When you ask for something, you don't know if you're going to get it. When you decree a thing like a king, you know that it shall be done, and somebody better get to doing it, or heads are going to roll. And so when you have that oneness with as the creator, then you know what you speak, it shall be. Abracadabra. I create as I speak. So prayer and meditation. Now, there's another thing I want to talk about. Intuition. When you're grounded spiritually, you follow intuition. When you're not grounded, you follow instinct. Now, do animals follow instinct or intuition? Animals follow instinct. And the instinct is arrived genetically. It's derived from, they know when I see that or smell this, I need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens when you're in a whole new environment that you're not familiar with? Then you can't trust your instinct. So we as higher level beings, we move in intuition. Instinct operates from the head. Intuition operates from the heart. The heart chakra is the most powerful energy source in the physical man.
Yeah.
It's more powerful than the brain.
Yeah.
The heart chakra. So if your heart is right, then you will be able to know when to go, when to come, and what to do at all times. So we as spiritual beings, divine spiritual beings, should be moving in instinct. Not instinct, intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Not instinct and intellect. Okay, how would an African know if he's walking through the forest or wherever he's walking through, and he steps on something, and to avoid an infection, he knows that intuitively that tree over there, that bark, if I rub it on the the wound, I'm going to heal properly. That's intuition because it's one with the tree.
Yes.
It's one with source. And the
Mhm.
things that want to help us live is going to say, hey, over here. So that's
And that is so
intuition.
true. Everything that we are required to have to live is given to us in nature.
Yes.
Automatic. Every
Yes.
time a new disease shows up, you better believe a new plant is
Yes.
going to be found someplace,
Hmm. Hmm.
and not in a lab,
Hmm. Hmm.
but in the rainforest or in the forest or someplace where nature is not tampered with by man.
See, when you are not a spiritual being, then you are a human being. And a human being is one who leans heavy into intellect, leans heavy into uh, that which he understands as science, whereas a spirit being leans into the spirit and capitalizes on the humanness of who there's a place for your sensory realm, but your sensory realm should not trump, and I hate to use the word trump now, should not um, um, trump your spirit intellect and your intuition. I take intuition over intellect any day, particularly when you're dealing with a new situation. Oh, what do I do? You can't lean into your intellect because you don't know what to do, because if you knew what to do, you wouldn't say, what should I do? So
Mm-hmm.
now you got to be comfortable leaning into your intuition. And as coaches, we don't give answers, but we help people get to the place of being able to hear the voice within.
Trust their own intuition.
Trust their own intuition.
Mhm.
Their intuition led them to you.
Yes.
So now listen to what you share with them and go through the experience of fine tuning to know when it's my intuition and when it's my intellect. I'm good at that. I know when it's my intuition and when it's my intellect. When it's my intuition, it comes first. When it's my intellect, it comes back and I'm second guessing it. When it's intuition, it feels good. It feels right. When the intellect, there may not be any feeling with it except the unsureness of I don't know if I'm doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's right. Intuition over instinct.
Now, it's so interesting because I said I wanted to write down 10 things myself for what I use to ground myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so far you've hit on most of them. And I want to actually have you speak on a couple of more
Okay.
so that we can get all of them. And you almost hit on this, but one I'm going to give you the only four you haven't hit on, and then you can talk about them in whichever way you want
Okay.
to. Okay, so solitude, bathing or water, spiritual sexuality, and fasting.
All right. All right. All right. Okay. Let's start with the bathing, because to have all the rest of them, you want to do that first.
Okay.
You want to. So we don't look at bathing just as um, the opportunity to cleanse ourselves of the external dirt and grime that's on us, but bathing is a sacred way of connecting back to. You're 80% water, I believe they say.
Yeah,
So
more like
you're
that.
you're connecting back with the essence of who you are. It's something wonderful about water. It gives you peace and it shows us something. Water has the ability to take on the form of whatever it is. Water can become a mist. Water can become very hard if it's frozen. Water can flow. Water can stand still. So water for me, taking a bath. Now I love baths more so than showers.
Mm,
I'm probably one of few minutes. I could be in a bathtub for 3 hours.
yeah.
I will let the water out and I will run it hot again because I like hot water.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like to burn candles and have certain smells. I like bubble baths, all of those things. Mr. Bubble is my best. No, I'm joking with you. No, but so bathing for me, I see it as water as a way of bringing a sense of calm. Something
Mm-hmm.
for me about water. So I bathe more than I take showers in based on where I'm at. But when I own my own space, because I like a big tub, I like a clean tub.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sacred space for me,
Yeah.
and it's a great time for you to go into meditative thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great time to read a book that you're having a difficult time comprehending. So it's a great time to just be still. So something about water, and not only being in water, but being around water. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like going to the. I prefer rivers, water that is running, versus water that is stagnant. But
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes I like to go to the to the river when the water's not running and it's just being still. The serenity that takes me to solitude. When I talk about solitude, it's quietness plus peacefulness. It comes through meditation. When I get to the right place in meditation, I'm in a space of solitude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and for me, it's a state of solidness. It's a state of oneness, and I'm okay right there. And I stay there as long as I can be there. It's a place of being for me. And so being still, going through the process of meditating, getting still, moving to solitude. For some of us, we can only do it for a minute, but the more you two do it, you get longer bursts of time inside of solitude. Now, that's been a difficult one for me as a man because we're about doing,
Mm.
where solitude is about being. You're not doing anything, you're being who you are. It's about moving to a oneness, an I, not even an I am, not adding anything to it. I. And when you say I, you're saying you and it is it. And that's why you can say, I am God, because I understand solitude and that I am a manifestation of it. What was the other one? Oh, sacred sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sacred sexuality. That's a whole conversation inside of religion because we think sacred sex, first of all, sex is only sacred in the traditional sense of Judeo-Christianity is when you are married. And then they have this conversation. They say, I was born in sin and shaped in iniquity. How could you be born in sin if you, in fact, are married and it's considered sacred? So some of the things we say that don't add up, but I don't believe sacred sex has anything to do with being married. Sacredness first starts with understanding the sacredness of self.
Mm.
Sacred sex says, I do not connect myself with others. Like in my life, I have always made it this practice. I will not be sexual with a woman who I could not end up being her man. Now, I don't even like to say somebody's man because that seems ownership. Being in alliance with, meaning so if I'm having sexual intercourse with you and would not even consider being with you, that's not sacred. And far as I'm concerned, that's a form of fornication, like animals.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's sacred, it says that I honor this person to the point that if it was necessary that it had to be that way, it would be no problem. So I have in my adult life, now I'm being kind of personal here, I have sexes does not mean as much to me at this age because I understand, matter of fact, for about the last 20 years, I understand the power of sex. I understand the possibility of sacred sex. It's a possibility to create something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I talk about sacred sex, it's about understanding myself. And it's not just about having a physical release or an orgasm. It's about understanding the energy that moves through your body and what that energy is doing as that energy moves up through your different chakras. That if you are doing thinking the right things in the right space, it could be healing, it could bring forth manifestation. It's the power of agreement. There's no greater agreement than two people intimately involved and no one is being used.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if any of that hit home to somebody out there. So the sacredness of sex, sacred sex is not based on contractual relationships.
Yeah, really. And
Because, go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. No, 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 go ahead.
Like women who think that's my husband, when he wants it, he gets it. That's not the way it's supposed to be. If he wants it and you don't want it, there should be an agreement that we don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is something, then it's not sacred. If you're giving your physical body when you don't want to give your physical body and just doing it because of ownership, that's not sacred.
Mm-hmm.
It's just consensual,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes the power away from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last one was fasting.
Fasting. Okay. Fasting is for me early in my Christian walk, it was the letting go of something. But I fast in a different way. I take on things. Most people say I fast by letting go. Okay, I stop eating. Okay, so instead of fasting by I stop eating, I may stop eating junk food and I eat healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to do something when you give something versus taking away. But then there's the benefit spiritually of fasting from food and things, so that now your resonance is unhindered. I mean, all the other stuff gets in the way. It's the food can be a filter that stops the flow. Sex can be a filter. Clothes, anything that you could fast from. The reality is when you separate yourself from that thing for a season, it opens up space for and for me, I would say it opens space for the creator to show itself in a different way, in its more pure form.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like emptying yourself so that you can actually be filled from a different level.
Yes, I
Mm.
like it. I'm out here in the night.
Yeah, I loved
Can you
watching.
see? Can you see me?
Barely.
You can see my teeth.
I can see your teeth in the light from your computer.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good,
But
good.
we're gonna wrap up. But as we wrap up, what I want to do is I would like you to share any resources, any references that you
Okay,
have, so that our listening audience, if they can go further into some of the conversations
okay,
that you
good.
shared, that would be great.
Well, I would start by um, learn to go into the bookstore and just let the book choose you.
Yes, yes,
Go
yes.
go into a certain sections and let the book choose you. That's how every one of I have thousands of books and they all chose me. But then I had my coach used to tell me, even though we used to meet in the bookstore, she told me there was coming times when I need to stop buying books.
Yes.
And it happened. I stopped buying books and I don't have even access to my books. They're in storage
Mm-hmm.
because we tend to have a dependency that the book is greater than the reader,
Mm,
when all that's in the book is already in you.
mm,
You have to have, there's no original thought.
mm.
We just have to be available to it. So I would say, first of all, just go hang out in the bookstore and see what jumps out at you. Also, I would recommend Dr. Murphy's, anything by Dr. Charles Murphy. I recommend him. But then I have a couple of new books that I recommend. One is called Spirituality Before Religions.
Mm.
Spirituality Before Religions. It says spirituality is unseen science. Science is seen spirituality. And that's by Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, Kamene. Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. Spirituality Before Religions. It's a very good book. And then this is an old book that I've had. It's called Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality. So if we're talking about spirituality, we have to understand that spirituality is an energy it comes forth in a divine femininity and divine masculinity. And you want to learn how to operate inside of both of them. And then the last book I would recommend is Spiritual Warriors Are Healers.
Mhm.
Spiritual Warriors Are Healers. And this book is written by uh, Infudishi, the brother Infudishi. You can find him on YouTube, and his name is spelled Mfundishi. Spiritual Warriors Are Healers. I have thousands of books I could recommend. I say just learn to get quiet and let the book come to you. Matter of fact, let everything come to you.
Yeah.
Be like water. Let things flow into your life. Be like water. Let things flow out of your life. When
Mhm.
something come into your life, use it. When something leaves your life, understand this. It has served its highest and greatest good for you. Don't hold on to things if you got to white knuckle it. Come on now. Let things come and let things go. Go. That's called the divine flow.
Very cool. And I just want to let everyone know that specifically what Sarah touched on were 10 things that you can use to ground yourself, and we went through these 10 things: meditation, breathing, earthing, like he was doing outside, solitude, silence, journaling, bathing, time in nature, spiritual or sacred sexuality, and fasting. So,
Yes.
I really want to thank everyone for joining us. And again, if you're having any challenges right now and you need to speak to someone, or you would like to learn more about Master Force in our classes, you can actually give us a call at 773-969-6211. And you're welcome to visit our Facebook page, and it is Ignite Your Soul Connection. And we will be reposting the replays on this conference next week.
Awesome.
And we invite you to join us tomorrow, where we will be talking to Dr. Tammy, and we will be discussing health, sex, and well being. And then, Greg, so do you have any last words before we sign off for
Yes,
tonight?
I want to, if anybody want to know a little bit more about what I'm doing, particularly if you want to know what I believe. See, a lot of people can tell you what they don't believe in, but I'm a brother that believes in telling you what I believe. So if you want to know more about what I believe, what's the guiding principles of my life, you can go to my website. It's called www, the place of possibilities, plural, the place of possibilities.com. And you'll find out everything you need to know about what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with, where we're doing it at. Okay.
Very cool. Thanks again, Greg Ausar, for just your time, your energy, for always being someone
Right.
that wants to play, and
Yes.
participate. I appreciate you for that. And we will be looking forward to seeing some of the possibilities that you're putting
Yes.
into life.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that. And everyone else, we want to thank you. And before we go out, let's listen to our wonderful producer, Vicky. Do you have anything to say to us before we sign off tonight?
No, I just would like for you all to log on to Facebook and check out our Ignite Your Soul series page, because the videos will be up either later on tonight or tomorrow from the first 3 days of our series. And thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you again tomorrow at 7:30. Of course, the room will be open at 7:25 for you to get grounded and get centered so we can become better in ourselves. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for joining us. Everybody have
All
a
right.
good night.
Good night.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All
Stay
right.
on, Greg.
Okay.
Yay!